Welcome to Home Education Matters, the weekly podcast supporting you on your home education journey.
Hello, welcome to our video today where we are going to be talking about, is home education trickle down stupidity? So we saw an article, I think it was a podcast in America, and the woman said homeschooling is trickle down stupidity. And I thought, what an interesting idea, because I think there's two things that the woman was implying. The first one, which I think we can do away with quite quickly, is that if you home educate, you're stupid. And then the second idea is a slightly more interesting one, which is that our values and our perspectives and our parameters limiting our children's, because we are the single conduit through which they discover these ideas. Even if we're facilitating them, finding them, we're still kind of facilitating them through our own lens, if you like, because we're like, oh yes, that's interesting to look up. Whereas other things we might be a bit more, oh, well, you don't need to focus on that or whatever. So I thought there were two interesting things. Let's deal with the first one first. Is there something inherently stupid about choosing to home educate? Going against the norm, doing something different? Emily, what do you think?
I mean, I'm going to say no, right? Because I've chosen to home educate.
I am stupid.
Yeah. See, for me, I think that there's actually more stupidity in just following the norm without questioning. So, yes, I would say that if someone is choosing to home educate because they're following someone else's decision, so they're doing it because that's what their friends are doing, or they're doing it because it's what their parents did, so they're just following without having consciously made that decision themselves for their best interest or the best interest of their child, then absolutely you could say that that's a stupid decision. But that is how many people make the decision to educate their children, through just doing what they're told is the norm to do, which in our case in the UK is to send children to mainstream school. Some people would argue that people who send their children to private school are making a stupid decision because it can, because it's makes them, they're not experiencing the real world either. So yeah, I think any decision can come from what could be referred to as a stupid place if you're doing it without doing your own research. If you make any decision without researching it yourself and deciding for yourself, then yeah, it could be seen as stupid. But for me, I made a very informed decision, and I've always kept myself very informed and continued making the decision to home educate because I constantly review that. I constantly look at the evidence around me. I do the research. I am very much in the community, understanding what's going on with education and what all my choices are. And I'm making the decision based on that. And I think as long as you're doing that, whatever decision you make about your child's education will be the right one, because you're doing it from an informed place.
So you're saying that necessarily, because you're going against the norm, you do that, and you have to do it in an informed way because you have to think about it, because it's not a default decision, and therefore it can't be stupid because you're having to engage your brain. And I think what you're saying is that there are maybe decisions that feel like they're more default decisions where you don't actually think about them, that could actually be considered as stupid just purely because you're just kind of not thinking about it, you're just doing it. Charlotte, what do you think?
I mean, stupid is objective, isn't it? Or subjective. Wait, I always get them confused. Objective. Yeah. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe that's the problem. No, I'll take a really common thing for right now that I think is stupid. Getting a mortgage. Think it's dumb. Don't understand why people do it. Not got any inclination to get a mortgage in any way, shape, or form. Can't understand what people are doing. Like, don't get it. Not a bit of me at all. That's I am like the 0.5% of people that think that in the universe, right? But does that make me stupid for thinking that? Or does it make the other people stupid for getting a mortgage? Like, who is going to tell me that, like, there's no one that can tell you that thing. If you think that something's stupid, then you think that thing is stupid, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's stupid. I mean, there's generic stupidity, right? Like, I think that the people that choose to home educate because they can't be bothered to do school run and they want to avoid any... I know a fair few people around here that have pulled their kids out of school just because they can't be bothered to argue with their children about going to school, right? Like teenagers that get to that point where they can't be asked, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to be told what to do, they're maybe struggling a little bit with the work or, you know, whatever, and they don't want to be in that environment. So they just tell their mum, no, I ain't going, you can't make me. So rather than the mum, you know, being smart about it and trying to find out how they can help the kids and blah blah blah, what they do instead is they go, well, I can't be asked to argue with him, he's bigger than me, I don't care, and then pull their kids out of school and home ed, quote unquote home ed, because they can't be bothered to take them to school. Now that is stupid. That's dumb. You're not doing your kid any favors. You're not doing you any favors. You're not doing anyone any favors, because the likelihood is, if a parent is like that, they aren't going to actively home educate their children. They're going to sit them in front of a screen or an Xbox or a phone for 12 hours a day and let YouTube babysit them. So that is a generically stupid thing that some people are doing. Choosing to home educate, again, it's the same as the mortgage thing. If you choose that for you, that is what works for your kid, who on earth is telling you that that's different? Because there is no one that is else their parent. There's no one else that's bringing that child up. So it's not for anyone else to say whether it's stupid or not. I mean, I've been told that I'm stupid because it's funny. I have a thing. You could probably tell, actually. I have a thing about the word stupid because I have been called stupid for my whole entire life, because I had a baby at 16. I have lots of children by a very young age, so people seem to think. I mean, my argument with that is, let's go back 50 years and everybody had the same amount of kids that I do at this age. So let's not, you know, and they probably all had them one after the other as well. They didn't have gaps. They just popped one out every year. But it's annoying because stupid to people. And like, I have tattoos and I am from Essex, so I speak with an accent, and people instantly assume that I'm thick. They instantly assume that I'm stupid, and when I then tell them that my kids are home ed, they're like, oh my God, your kids are home ed. And it's like, why are we just instantly taking all of these factors and assuming that somebody is incapable or stupid of doing something, when actually I'm qualified in the world of qualifications more than most people I know. So really, who's stupid? Because you work in Tesco's and I have got a master's. So, you know, let's just not, shall we? I don't get the whole, you know, the objectiveness of stupid, the word stupid, because it's different for everybody.
And there's also, as well, on that, like, as you say, what is stupid? Because just because, on the flip side of that, just because you have qualifications or academic achievement does not make, you know, my mum, bless her, was, you know, very academic, but like her executive functioning and her common sense was horrific. And so, you know, there are people who have been incredibly successful in running businesses and things who can't tell you, who can't do basic maths. necessarily don't know their times tables, for example, or they don't know, the historic landmarks or different, they wouldn't be able to tell you about artists and all of those kind of things that we are pressured to teach our children and ensure that our children know that information. But there are people who have had very successful lives who don't know that information. And who are we to decide? Like, I really do agree that children having an access to information, to opportunities to learn, and for an education is really, really important. But who decides what is important? What makes you not stupid and what makes you stupid?
But that's
Like, who
exactly
made that decision?
that's exactly the point, isn't it? I know. I think that's such an interesting point, because I think if we were to broaden this discussion out and assume that the woman wasn't just saying that home educators are stupid, because that would be a really silly thing to say. I think let's assume that actually what she is saying instead is like that actually what you're saying there is that you as the parent are defining what is stupidity and what isn't stupidity, what is intelligence and what isn't, and you define it based on what you consider to be an important education. Like, you might think that knowing about art is much more important than knowing about biology, but another parent might actually think that art is a complete waste of time and they want their child to learn about AI, and or they want their child to be on Roblox learning like computer graphics or hand-eye coordination or something, right? Like, I think possibly the point she might be making, and is a valid point, is that as the home educator, because we are not a school full of teachers who all have their own different perceptions of what is important and what isn't, because it all just comes through us, the one single person, aren't we defining what we think is important? And therefore we're defining it for our children as well.
I think it depends on how your, like, what your plan is, doesn't it? Because the other thing in this that people don't piece together, and I still cannot understand how we're in 2026 and no one's piecing it together. You put 30 kids in a classroom across the country and they all learn the same thing, they all learn the same skills, they all learn every single thing is the same. Yeah, standardized testing. Like, there's no person, even a school parent, that's going to argue with me that the kids all don't learn the same thing, because we know that they do. That's what school is, right? You go through senior school, they all still learn the same thing. We're all still on the same track, other than the 3 classes that they get to pick that are different at GCSE, 3, right? Then you have how many? I mean, my senior school, there was 9 classes of 30 in my year. So that's what, 270 kids coming out of school at the same time on the same finish date. And then if they go to college or whatever, then everyone's looking for a job. Now you've got 270 kids in one area that have all got the same skill set. Do you really think that there are 270 jobs the same that are going to cater to all of those children? No, of course there isn't. So is it not, yes, like what you said, we are the ones deciding what our kids are doing. So we're defining the word stupid or not stupid, but also all of these things that I've said, like the people that work in Tesco's, there is jobs in Tesco's that need to be filled, because we need to have people working in supermarkets that are going to help us with buying our food shopping. If we eliminate every single job and make everyone the same, there aren't going to be people that do these. The Roblox mums that are trying to get their kids to learn graphics and gaming and all of that. We need those people to make that, because we need those AI programs to help in where it helps. We need the people that are learning to work in Tesco's and have good customer services skills and good people skills, because they are the ones that are going to make everybody's day-to-day life much better when they're going in and buying their supermarket stuff. Like, this is what I mean. The world is not the same. We don't all work the same job. So why do we need to standardize the education? And why is it stupid for someone to do that?
Charlotte, are you saying that that when I was saying obviously that as the single point of focus for the education, our limitations become our child's limitations. Are you saying that the curriculum, the national curriculum, takes the place of a single parent in effect because it's making all the school children learn the same
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. People that call us out for being stupid because we are teaching our kids a one path thing, even though I have 4 children, none of my 4 children do the same thing. So that doesn't really make sense. But the school is doing the exact same thing, right? It's minimizing the potential, it's minimizing the opportunities, it's minimizing all the things that could happen to all these children by teaching them all the same thing. So what part is stupid? School, home ed? What part are we? Where are we? What are we calling stupid? Because I know which one sounds more stupid to me.
Interesting that all of our lives end up becoming anti-school. I don't know, because our podcasts aren't, but for some reason, when it's just the three of us like chatting, we become really anti-school. It's really interesting. Emily, what are you going to say?
I'm on a rant today. I'm in a rant mood.
You're still pregnant. For anyone who's following Charlotte's pregnancy, she
Yes.
has not yet had a baby. We do
No,
not have a
she's
podcast
very
baby
much
yet.
still. No, she's still very pregnant and very hormonal and very anti everything right now. You could ask me about like coffee and I would have a problem with that too.
I think it's ironic saying that, you know, yes, of course, like as parents, we do filter down our views, our experiences and things to our children. But that happens whether the child goes to a school environment or not. Like, that's still going to happen. As a parent, you're still going to instill whatever it is that you want to instill in your child. However, as a home educator, what most home educators do is they present opportunities for their children, and they actually widen the opportunities for those children to experience and learn different things. And most home educators love the fact that their children are getting way more opportunities than they had, and are therefore encouraging them to do sometimes the complete opposite of what they did, because they want them to have these experiences and these opportunities that were not available to them, or that were limited by them going through the school system or whatever. So I don't really agree with that kind of analogy that they're saying that, you know, only having one input, because I think there are very few home educators who they are the only input into their child's education. Like, there are so many resources out there and so many opportunities that home educators are using in their big communities, and they're getting involved with different things, and there are often other adults or even other children who are involved in their child's education as well. It isn't I'm not saying that there aren't parents out there who are solo educating their children and whose children are very closed off and not having that wider input. But I think those are very few. I think the whole point of home education is that your children are actually getting to experience lots of different things rather than going to the same place every day with the same people, learning the same things. So I think it actually opens so many doors and so many opportunities. But then I am biased because I do it, right?
I think that when you're in the school system, there are more people in the process than when you home educate. This is where the whole safeguarding thing comes in as well, right? This idea that there's more eyeballs on your child. Now, there aren't necessarily, even if you attended like loads and loads and loads of clubs, you're never going to hit as many teachers, particularly in secondary. You're never going to hit as many teachers who are inputting into your child's education as you would in a school. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but that is a reality. There are just more people in the process in school. The only thing I will say is that I think that a lot of the extra stuff outside of the curriculum, which is a very valid point that Charlotte made there about the curriculum, I think outside of the curriculum, the parents still are a strong influence because they decide if they pay for music lessons or extra music or whatever, right? decide if they pay for this club or that club, or if they want to pay for a school trip or whatever it is, right? So I think parental influence does still have an impact on the school system. But even if, and I agree with what you say, Emily, there are huge opportunities for home educators, particularly now. But as the home educating parent, you still get to choose which ones you prioritize for your child through your perspective. And so, isn't it the case that if you don't, like, because we're never very sporty, as an example. I was thinking this only a couple of days ago. We're not a very sporty household, right? I'm quite lazy. And so as a result, like, I never really prioritize a lot of sporty stuff, like sporty clubs with my children. But if it was something sciencey or arty, I was all over it. I was like, yeah, like, and I would book them in. And then I'd say, what do you think? Or I'd say, do you want to go to this? Then I'd book them in. But if it was a sports thing, like a cricket club or a tennis summer camp, like, it's like my brain just skittered over it. I just didn't kind of give it any credence. And now this was, whereas in a school, they would forcibly be exposed to more things, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. And I do think that that's potentially something like, it's hard as well because sometimes your kids don't want to try things, whereas they'd be forced to try things in a school environment that then they might actually really like them. And it's quite hard as a parent. You don't want to push them, you want to listen if they're saying they don't want to, or you don't want to spend out a load of money on something that they're then like, oh no, I don't like it. So it can be, yeah, I agree. It is difficult to get that balance. But then on the flip side of that, they can be forced to do things that they really don't enjoy. And if they're not sporty themselves and they absolutely hate it, being forced to do that and being the one never chosen and the one that always comes last, and what that does to a child and not being able to opt out of that also does its damage. So
Probably why I'm not sporty, to be fair.
And but this is what I was just about to say. This is what I was just about to say about adults. We're talking, oh, Jesus, Raph. We're talking about 10% of a person's life, yeah, is childhood, right? That's all we're talking. Eleanor, if I met you as an adult in the world and we started having coffee and talking, and you told me that you do 5 spin classes a week and you go to the gym afterwards for an hour, I'm gonna think you're a crackhead. Like, what? Like, I'd be like, what on earth? Why on earth? Why are you exercising that much? Like, what are you doing? But if kids don't do that, we seem to think that they're like these really lazy, weird kids that don't want to. Why? Where's the changeover? Because I don't meet an adult like my husband, for example. He likes working out. I think he's crazy because he'll work out for like 3 hours. I'm like, how do you have that in you to work out for 3 hours? And he's like, he's running like 20k. Why are you doing that for fun? I'm like, he said the other day something about making him run, like he needs to go for his run, and I'm like, someone got a gun to your head? Like, what is happening here? Why are you choosing to run 20k? That to me is weird. But in school and in curriculum land and kid land and home ed land, if you tell someone that they never do any exercise, they look at you like you've got 3 heads. Why? Oh no, they don't. What sport do they play? Oh, they don't play any sport. And then they look at you like you've like neglected them, like you're beating them with a stick.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, why aren't we like this with adults?
Yeah, we're not like it. And this is what I mean. Because kids have 10%, that's 10% of their life. The rest of the life, they are adults. But we don't treat children to the same expectation that we do with kids. It's so weird.
Also, we wear our children out too much.
Yeah.
They're expected to do so much. It's like they're growing,
Yeah,
and developing. Like, that is really tiring, and they need a lot of rest time.
Yeah, like, where's the boredom
give
in
that to them.
schools? It's so full
Yeah.
on. Like, where is the just sitting around contemplating your navel? There's none of that in.
And they've got to go to school all day. Then they've got to go and do after school activities because God forbid your child doesn't do, or they're in wraparound care
daycare
as well. because their parents are working. Then they've got to do sports things at the weekends, go to parties, go to all of these things. And you're like, when's their downtime?
But if we're talking about influence in a single setting, because that's the problem, isn't it? That people say that we're the only person that influence our children, which I do understand, and I get what you were saying about senior school. They have, in a week they have 12 other adults that have an influence. They don't have an influence, do they? Do they though? They have reading off of a curriculum sheet. That's not an influence. That's, I could
And it's
take
not
my
one-on-one.
kids. No, it's not one-on-one. I could take my kids down to that library right now, and I could get them to talk to the librarian, read a book, recite a book, and read it to my children. That's exactly the same as what a senior school teacher's doing. There's no difference.
That is so true. And I was thinking the same thing a couple of days ago because both of my two applied to university recently, and they used the same tutor that they'd each had. My son since he was 13, and my daughter when she was going through her GCSEs. They both used the same tutor who did everything with them: maths, astronomy, physics, chemistry, biology. Right? She did all the sciences and she did maths. And she was quite local to us, so we saw her in person, and then we saw her online when we moved. And she then did my children's university references to get them into university. Now, this woman has had a one-to-one academic relationship with my children because she tutored them for like 3 years or something through their GCSEs and then their A levels. Now, you don't get like that one-to-one academic input in a school. So actually, I think my two have had more people involved one-to-one in their academic process than they ever would have had in a school system. And this woman has sort of seen them grow and flourish,
And you're telling me, Eleanor, that your kids at no point through being 11 to 16 have come in contact with 12 different people? Because I know they have.
Not
Like
academically, though. Not academically.
But why does that bit matter? Because we're talking about influence.
Yeah,
from
just
people.
influences,
That bit
yeah.
doesn't matter. And academic, like we just said, academic is everywhere. Like academic is what does academic mean? Because there's professors that study dinosaurs that haven't been alive for millions of years. They're still academic, but we're literally studying something that does not exist and will not ever exist in any human being's lifetime right now. But we're calling them people academic. But I teach my children about social skills in the world and life and all of that, and I'm suddenly not an academic person. Dead dinosaurs, current social skills. Like, what are we? Why are we?
I think they're called paleontologists. But for any paleontologists listening, we fully respect your profession.
I don't.
I was going to say though that actually one thing about home education though is that although I'm saying that we have a much more limited input academically from other people, and I think we do, but I absolutely take your point, Emily, about the one-to-one, because that makes a big difference. But also, if you think about GCSEs, like we have a much broader academic reach at GCSE.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's so many wacky, cool subjects that my children did at GCSE and in school, Charlotte, you were saying, I think, that you can only choose like 3. I know that there is the most common thing I hear is that, oh, well, if you choose this, you then can't choose that. Or if you choose this, then you have to choose these. So it's not even a free choice when you get to choose.
When my boy picked his, if you wanted to do a language, you couldn't do geography or history. So if you picked any language, you instantly couldn't do geography or history. You also, if you were smart, and they did this to me at my school, and I swear I kicked up such a stink. My mum went in for like meeting after meeting because I just refused to go to the class. If you were, so I am academic. Well, I'll say academic because fine, but I am very academically good at English. So anything English, writing, anything like that, I'm very, very good at. My maths is so completely poor that my 7-year-old is probably better at it than me. And I can't do maths. But because I was in top set for English, there was no option to opt out. I had to take triple science. And that meant that 5 hours of my week, so a whole day at school, was triple science. I hated science. I absolutely hated it. I couldn't do the physics part because I couldn't do the maths part because I didn't understand it. Biology, I was fine. I did all of that absolutely fine. But the physics, the numbers, and all of that in it had no interest. Don't care about science. Don't care about Bunsen burners. I'd probably try and set fire to the classroom. Don't really care. Like, it weren't me. And yet, because I was good at English, which is a completely different subject, I was then being held subjective to I was then being held subjective to 5 hours, which is one whole day of my school week, doing science. Why is that? And that's still a thing now.
I think people talk about home education being stupid, which I think was the implication of the quote. But how is it stupid to be able to choose your children's GCSEs such that you can pick the exact ones that work for them, the ones they're going to get the best grades at, the ones they're going to really enjoy learning about, the ones that they're like super engaged with anyway? That just feels like that feels
And
the
also,
most.
my 11-year-old, yeah, I've never known anything like it. The other day, we went to the charity shop. My charity shop, I love my charity shop, but it is trash, right? Like, it is buckets and buckets of trash. It's just, shush. There is, yes, a bucket of trash.
Have you watched the Lemony Snickets? I do you two at the
Sunny,
age where your
my
children watch the
little
Lemony
baby Sunny.
Snickets on telly? Sunny, your son sounds just like the
I swear.
baby on Lemony
Yeah.
Snicket.
Yeah. I think she did a TV appearance. Right, quickly go and get me a monster truck. Quick, get me a monster truck. She loves anything trash, my child, which is she goes digging through all these buckets to find these things, right? Another man's trash is another man's treasure and all that. And she came home, big bag of stuff, and I'm like, what the hell have you bought? She's like, oh, just some bits and pieces, blah, 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 spent £1, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, right, okay. She came down, honestly, I kid you not, 2 hours later, and she had sewed together a whole dress. I mean, a corset, a dress, a skirt, elastic things.
That's called something. It's called trash couture, and it's like a whole
trash
thing.
couture. Yeah. But I cannot. There would have been no way if she was at school that I would have ever known that that's what she was good at. I would have never, ever, ever been able, because of what you said, burning the kids out. They go to school all day, then they come home and they cry for half an hour because they're tired. Then you give them a snack, then you take them to dancing. My children then have to see their dad. So they go and see their dad. I'm not with her when she's at her dad's. I can't see what she's doing. I would have never, ever, ever known that that's what she likes doing. And now we could send her to fashion design school because she can hand make clothes. Like, what on earth? She's 11. It's insane. But school would have never known that. And maybe, okay, we'll spare the argument. If she had picked art in year 11 and done textiles in art, maybe a teacher at 16 may have been able to pick up that she was really good at it. Would she still be good at it if she hadn't done it from the age of 9? Don't know if that would have been her.
But also, would she have got restricted? Would she have not enjoyed it? Because the thing is you can do textiles, but then you're told she could have been like, oh, I want to make a dress out of all of this. And they'd be like, no, but that's not what we're doing. We're doing this. And then she'd be like, well, I don't like that bit of it. So
yeah. That's what happens. I did textiles at GCSE, and I had to do 2 different styles of, what are they called? Modes? Is that the right thing? Like painting and sewing. I had to do 2 different ones. But you had to do the painting one first. I didn't particularly, no, other way around. You had to do whatever way it was, but I didn't like the hand sewing. I liked the painting part. So I spent ages painting it, and then I had to sew it. And I was like, well, I don't really want to sew it now because that's going to take me hours, because I've painted this really intricate piece that I wanted to paint. And now I've got to sew it, and now my hands hurt, and I don't really want to do that anymore.
That is so common at school.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens, I think, particularly with things like art and English, is art. If you're not good at drawing or sketching, then you don't like art, even though art is so much broader than that. And the same thing with English. If you're bad at spelling, you end up not wanting to do creative writing because your creative writing is always like annotated with red pen telling you what you've done wrong. And so people that would be amazing, like my daughter's dyslexic, if she'd been in the school system, she's writing a book. She's writing 3 books. She would never be writing books because she would have had all of her spelling constantly picked on. So she would never have wanted to put pen to paper. And so, or in actual fact, worse, she does everything on her laptop. If she'd have been made to put pen to paper, she would never have written anything because it just isn't, it's not an enjoyable process for her. So in actual fact, what you're both saying is that instead of home education being trickle down stupidity because we're limiting the horizons of our children, you're both saying actually that we broaden the horizons of our children because we allow them to go with what they want to go with in the way that works for them, whereas school is the limiter to the horizons. Is that true?
Yeah. I actually think
Job
as
done.
well that yeah, that
That
this-
was like,
thi-
yeah,
this-
done, finished.
I was waiting for her. She was going to say no, and then she was like,
Do you know why?
Yeah.
Because my ADHD brain's gone on to just when I heard trickle down stupidity, you know, it made me think of is that it's people saying this trickle down free thinking. They don't want people to be free thinkers who think outside of what the norm is. You know, I'm going to go all like, I'm not going conspiracy theory here. I'm not going that far, but, but you know, let's face it, a vast majority of home educators are also a little bit alternative in their thinking. They tend to be on the fringes of society.
even if they're not to start with, they get there, don't they?
They become like that. Yeah, right? Because you suddenly start to question everything else as well. And so to me, I feel that there's an element of them wanting that label of stupidity because to them, thinking outside of the norm is stupid because it's different and you're dangerous because you're thinking for yourself. And that's what they don't want. And that's what they don't like, because what we're teaching our children is you can do whatever you want. You don't have to do what they tell you. You can question it because we're questioning education. We can question everything.
That only suits them when it suits them, though, right? Like, because since COVID, the amount of people, like, I'll say quote unquote normal people. I don't like the word normal, but you know what I mean? People that are very government in the box, do as they're told, you know, go to school, go to work, all of that. People that are like that, not like us. The amount of things I see in the world, talking to people on social media where they're like, yeah, wouldn't ever trust the COVID stuff again, wouldn't ever trust the jab, wouldn't ever trust this, wouldn't ever trust that through COVID. Or now, obviously, I'm part of a big, you know, pregnant community right now. The new vaccine that's come out for pregnant people, they're like, yeah, well, we've never had it before, so I don't want that. So when it suits people, they question out of the norm. But then when it's something that, like, I feel like people look at it and they go, more than 80% of people believe that, so I'm going to believe it. If it's less than 20%, then that's it. I'm not having no part of it. It's like asbestos. No one's going to argue now that asbestos isn't dangerous, but at one point they put it in every bloody roof in the country.
Loads of things become the norm.
This is what I mean. It's like it takes so long for things to change over. Like, we are now, luckily, thank God graces to my life, because that is one thing that stresses me out. We don't hit kids anymore. And luckily, you know, the majority of people do not smack their children anymore. There are still some people that do. I don't want to talk to any of you, but there are still some people that do that. But 30 years ago, if you told your neighbour, oh yeah, I clumped him the other day because he was doing this, they wouldn't even have questioned you. They would have gone, oh yeah, did you get him good? Does he learn his lesson? Like, that would be the answer. But now it's completely not okay. And this is what people don't understand, is the world does change and the world does evolve. Dead dinosaurs. And we don't have I have an issue with dinosaurs and why do I have an issue with the dinosaurs and the word stupid? These are the two things coming out of this. Maybe it's the two things. I don't know.
I wonder whether we should do a podcast at some point,
on
or
dead
one
dinosaurs.
of these lives, or on paleontology, just to even things out. No, I wonder whether we should do a live on whether home educators are like trailblazers, in this sense that actually like the world is moving away from this norm-based kind
Yeah.
of warehousing of children. If you
I
if you
said
want to
this
use
on
a
a
Why do you
construct like
think
podcast.
that.
all of the countries are having this massive panic about home educators and
Yeah.
clamp down on home education? Like, they're not
Ireland's a
the
nightmare
only
at the moment.
country.
Ireland's
Yeah.
terrible.
Because all the rulers are panicking, because if there's too many people free thinking,
Yeah.
they don't want people free thinking. That's the problem. They want everyone. And going back to when you said about what school producing everyone the same, that was the whole point of school.
Yeah, that was literally in their memo.
You were either being molded into factory workers, office workers, or the elite and they were in different schools anyway. And that was it. So yes, the whole system was designed that everyone came out as carbon copies of each other because that's what they wanted. Yeah.
You know, and this is what makes me laugh. Whenever I get into these, he waits until I start talking and then he talks.
It's really
Like,
cute.
yous two talk, and he
Joining
does.
in.
He just wants his own episode.
Raf, do you want to go on your own episode? No. The
Silence.
thing is that makes me laugh when you have these conversations with people about all of this stuff. I will not, like me personally, because I know a lot of home educators that just throw out their own influence and radical ideas about stuff and their opinions. Me as a person, I will not share something unless I know for a fact that what I'm saying is what I'm saying. And there's so many things, like there is a government pot in every school for gifted children. That still exists, but that pot is very, very small. And there could be 10 gifted children at 10 different things, but that pot only has room for one child. Like, why do people think that this doesn't exist? They go, no. If your kid was good at something, the school would pick it up. No, they wouldn't. They only have a certain amount of budget for people that can pick things up. So no, they can't. Your kid may be good at something, but it doesn't work like that.
Let me ask you a question, which I think is going to be interesting, because
Oh no,
I sense you're going to have an opinion on this. We have all met home educating parents, and we interact with them, and we think, like, my God, okay, because they either have really extreme views, or they have like very kind of super antiquated views, or they don't have any views at all, or they let their child do whatever they want, huge amount of screen time or whatever, right? I mean, you've referenced these parents yourself, Charlotte, in some of the podcasts we did about parenting. What about that? Because surely
Yes.
that is trickle down stupidity, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. I'm sorry, that is. Yeah, I like. So my issue, everyone will know this from all the podcasts and all the my issue is adults. I don't have an issue with what we're doing with kids. My issue is adults, and parenting, more so the point, because I don't think people understand the gravity of what you do for your child in those first 12 years literally makes them who they are as an adult. And then you produce an adult in the world, and that adult has to function for 60 years in the world and be able to get through their life. And if you have set them up to fail with these stupid, bloody, horrible, niche, silly arguments that you've decided you've cropped up out of I don't know, Pinterest post or I swore, no, bad.
I can feel my little bleep thing coming in.
Yeah, bleep me. I just can't. There's a balance. It's the same as what I say about everything. There's a balance with everything. There is right over there and there's right over there. And you need to set yourself somewhat in the middle.
But that's trickle down bad parenting, isn't it? You're describing trickle down bad parenting.
Not stupid, because I don't agree with the word stupid, because I think it's too objective.
As a home educator, if we're a bad parent, in inverted commas, right? So if we've got that trickle down bad parenting and we're a home educator, we are such a bigger influence on our children, aren't we? So then it will be more trickle down stupidity.
Well, it depends what parenting you're talking about, because if you're talking about offset parents that just go and dump their kids wherever they feel like it, then no, your kid ain't got no influence. Your kid has got
that offset parenting. I like
offset parenting. Basically, though, like
like
there's
offshoring.
offset, yeah. There's offset parenting in school life, as in the people whose babies from the second they come out are in childcare from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. and basically all you do is put it to bed. That's educational offset parenting. And then and usually those people then at the weekend they send their kid to their grandparents as well, and you just think, why on earth have you had a baby? When are you seeing it? What are you doing? And then there's home educating offset parenting, where basically every single outsource of something that you need, you get someone else to do. Which equally, why are you home educating? You may as well send them to school because you aren't doing any of it. So, and that's the extreme, the other end, right? Like there's that extreme, the other end where the kid is influenced by everyone and everyone's mother's, cat's, brother's dog. Or there's the other end where these home educators are so set on their own way of life and their own opinions that they influence their kids solely by themselves, and they don't socialize and they don't take their kids anywhere and they don't do anything with anyone else out of fear of, you know, someone else maybe having an opinion. And that's the two extremes of the end, and you need a balance in the middle. That's the point. There.
Where is this presumption that because someone's a teacher, they are a good influence on your child and that they're not stupid? Because I'm not being funny, but I know loads of teachers who their grammar and their like I'm sorry, I will like you can all come at me, but I don't want my children around people who can't talk properly.
No, she has a thing about that.
Drives me. I'm sorry, but I really do.
She has a thing.
Because my children are learning how, like, I've already seen it. You know, we went to live in another part of the country, and I won't say where it is. And my children started speaking in a way and using language that
don't come and live near me.
it wasn't the ideal that I wanted for my child, but that's personal we still live in that is personal preference, but why am I not allowed to make that personal preference? Do you see what I mean? Like, that's why I choose to home educate, because I want my children influenced by the people I want them influenced by.
That is really true. And we have an assumption, don't we, that teachers are not stupid, right? Necessarily. Now, as someone who trained as a teacher, I can say, yeah, I mean, that obviously isn't true. And actually, it's interesting when you're talking there, because my children went to a part-time Montessori when they were like 7 and 8, because I wanted to make sure that they weren't like super weird. And so they went to this part-time Montessori. And one of the reasons I pulled them out was because my son's secondary teacher, because they can put them in different ages based on their ability. His secondary teacher, he came home from this really lovely Montessori school, and he was doing secondary level teaching. So this wasn't primary, right? And he said, oh, we've been learning about primary, secondary, and territory colours. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He was like, primary, secondary, and territory. And so I was like, oh, no, you mean tertiary. And then he showed me the book, and she'd written primary, secondary, and territory colours. I was like, okay, so I think we're just going to leave that little experiment.
It's the fact that you obviously you two haven't had your kids in proper school, right? The things that I could tell you about what has happened in my, reports, when you get those silly, stupid reports where they write them, your kid's done this, and this level of this level. How many of those I am at some point, I'm going to sort my loft out soon with all the kids' memory stuff, and I will go through it. Do you know how many of those I have got with other kids' names on them because they just copy and paste them? I have got other children's names written on reports with my name at the top, and I'm looking at it like, I never gave birth to a kid called Gary. What on earth? What is happening here?
It's not just school, because my son did the cyber EPQ. And they sent out, so this is cyber hacking, EPQ, right? They sent out an email to all of the children, and they didn't blind copy anyone. So everybody had everybody else's email addresses. It was like, it's literally a cyber hacking course. What are you doing? So yeah, there's stupidity everywhere, right?
And this is the thing, right?
Exactly that.
Also, can I Google the definition of stupidity? Because I just need to.
You're hoping someone's name is going to come up.
I just need to go. Yeah, it's going to be my name. You got pregnant at 16, you awful human being. You've had 5 kids by 32. You're
I
dumb.
will say actually that point you made really early on is really valid. That people make terrible assumptions about other people. And I think people make assumptions about home educators based on the fact that we have chosen to home educate. And you can't make assumptions about someone's intelligence level based on one lifestyle choice, as we decided it was
Yeah.
last time.
I and that's why I'm really funny about the influences on my children, because that my mum always said, people will make assumptions about you. And so as long as you know, if you talk in a certain way or you do whatever, so eliminating some of those things for them to make assumptions about by ensuring that you do know certain things and that you do hold yourself in a certain way or present yourself in a certain way, it does make a difference. Like, you know, if you're going to a job interview and you turn up in a tracksuit, you can be the best candidate ever, but they will make a judgment on you the moment you walk into that room that will influence their decision. That's just a fact. And so teaching your children as well to navigate through the world is really important. We do need to give them the best tools possible so that they, you know, that, and that's not saying that you should have to have those, and we shouldn't be making assumptions about people, but the reality is that we do. And the reality is that you get more opportunities if you've got, you know, it's true that if you go to certain universities, it opens doors for you. Like, that is just a fact. Like, it shouldn't be like that. I don't agree with it, but
How can we change that system if we conform to it in that way?
Yeah, that's a systemal. No, that's not a word.
Systemic.
A systemic thing. Like, that was.
we've got to
and
get in
that
the
is-
systems. You've got to get in there to
yeah,
make the
and
Bring
changes.
it down
thing,
from
right?
within.
It's from age 16 until age 20. When did I go to uni? 21. I got called stupid repeatedly. Got called stupid. You had a baby at 16. You've got tattoos. You're from Essex. You're a hairdresser. I added a hairdresser into the mix. I mean, God forbid, Jesus Christ, you know, hairdressing is the most stupid profession on the universe, apparently. And I would love to see someone try and work out ratios when you're trying to do a color correction and then tell me that I'm stupid for being a hairdresser.
But
It's
people make
hilarious.
assumptions all the time. Like, people make assumptions about you because of your accent or the amount of children you have. People make assumptions about me based on my voice as well. Like, people will
Yeah.
make these assumptions. And
But
isn't it our job as a
played
parent?
the system then.
Say
Well,
again.
I then played the system, right? Like, I went to uni on purpose because of what Emily just said. When you go to uni and you have a degree, you've got more options into stuff. So now, try telling the short, tanned, tattooed Essex girl that was a hairdresser that she's not qualified enough to do it. I got a master's, so up yours. That's that's.
But do you know,
I quit that.
even in retail, so I worked in retail for a bit.
Then you were
Because
stupid,
I
right?
have a degree. No, well, yeah. But because I had a degree, despite the fact I had less experience than a lot of my colleagues, I could fast track to management. Like, I could just go straight into that.
Yeah, and how dumb is that? Because what part of your degree did you learn how to stack a shelf? None.
I did drama studies.
That's what I mean. It doesn't even.
I had,
this is the
but,
thing.
and I had no management experience. But because I had a degree, and that's like, it's stupid.
Yes.
But we can't bring it down unless we follow it and get in there and change the system. Like,
But that's
once
exactly
you get
what
into those positions, you can change things.
that's exactly what Lorna said in your podcast, Charlotte, that you did, Chats with Charlotte with Lorna. She said the exact same thing, that she was encouraging her children to stay in the school system so they could bring the school system down. And I remember listening to it and thinking, that's just not, like, that's not going to happen. Like that, so we've opted out of the school system.
I don't think
and now
children
you're sort of,
can do that, though.
You think what, sorry?
I don't think children can do that, but I think, like, I wouldn't say to my child, don't go into teaching necessarily, but because I could say, well, listen, I'm home educating you. You then learn everything, and get into the education system so that you can change it from within. Like, get really high up in the education, become the education
Secretary.
minister,
The new
secretary,
education
and change it
secretary.
like that. But I wouldn't say to my children, go into this, like, they can't change it as a child in the school system, because what influence does a child have in the school system? The person who has the influence is the head teacher, or the Ofsted inspector, or the education secretary,
or the trust academy that runs the finance department.
But it's telling our children that they can do that. Like, you've got to play the game.
Yes,
you can make changes, like giving them the confidence to be able to speak out and not feeling like they have to conform, but knowing how to conform enough to play the game. That's the balance that you have to get. You've got to be in the game, otherwise you can't.
We just had this conversation, didn't we, about the girls with confrontation in the world. So I was saying that my 11-year-old that went to school, when she was at school, she was taught that she can't question anything. She couldn't speak to the teacher. She didn't feel like she could, bring up issues. She was that kid that got sat next to the quote unquote naughty kid to make him better because she was good, right? So she didn't feel like she could speak out against all of these things that were happening because of whatever reason, not confident, blah, blah, blah. Now she isn't like that at all. She doesn't care. She wouldn't even bat twice about it. My 7-year-old, who has never been to school, we was in a coffee shop and the baby fell over, and there was a table of adult women that laughed at him when he fell over. My 7-year-old confronted 5 grown women and told them that they need to stop being so mean because her little brother just fell over and you shouldn't laugh at people. I don't need to question that kid. She's 7. She just stood up to 5 grown women. She don't care. And that's the difference in school versus home ed. My children they respect everybody. They aren't rude to anyone. And they respect everyone regardless of whether you're a child, parent, old lady, dog. They don't care. But school, because of the authoritarian relationship within teachers to children grow up believing that adults instantly have a better say. And if you are called stupid, like if I got called, so my experience with the word stupid, Eleanor, for example, you're older than me, right?
Oh yeah.
If you called me stupid, I'd be upset. But if someone my age called me stupid, I'd call them stupid. Because to me, where I've been indoctrinated to believe that because someone's older than me, they know more and they have more of a, settled opinion than me, I would instantly get upset at the fact that an older person is calling me stupid, because I would be worried that that person has had more of a lived in experience and knows more about me and the world, so they get to call me stupid because they're older. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that school does have that. School has that system inbuilt in it. And I did a podcast with Naomi Fisher like a couple of years ago about how this system of control that is in schools, this like shut up and do what you're told, that is inherent within the school system and has to be, or else it'd be bedlam. That total lack of control that children have, not only does it make them think that they can't question stuff, but it also makes them very, very anxious, and that's why we have such anxious children.
Can I just make a PSA side note that actual original logic, psychologically wise, comes from Hitler. So can we just like, I always mention Hitler. Why am I always talking about Hitler? It was the big thing in the psychology. Oh my God, I can't speak. The big thing in the psychology world regarding authoritarian relationships was when we came out of World War II and we were talking about World War II, Hitler, right? Yeah. I was what? Jesus, I had to check then. I thought, Jesus Christ, I am going to sound stupid on this. When we came out of World War II, all of the academic professors were questioning, why did people just blindly follow what he was saying? Why did people just that's him now drinking his drink?
I thought it was a monster truck.
No, he's just drinking his drink really loudly. Stop it. Then you choked on it. Stop. You're doing it on purpose. People see, my kids don't blindly follow nothing.
There's no Hitler in this house.
That's a relief.
It came out of that. Yeah, it came out of that we were questioning why do people blindly follow what people above them are saying? Like, what is the brain function of that? What is the, where do we get that from? And that was when we started questioning the podcast that I did on parenting styles. That was where the authoritarianism parenting came from. And then after that, we had a whole generation of watered down Hitlers, because we realized that actually, if you parent in this manner of screaming and shouting and, being controlling and do as I say and blah, blah, kids do what they want what we want them to do. Whether it's healthy or not is a completely different story. That's how we got to where we got with the school system, with the teachers being able to tell your kids what to do and just do. And actually, all we've done is trickled down stupidity from Hitler. So have that curriculum school-based stuff. There you go.
Well, I didn't think we'd be ending on that quote. But in actual fact, if anyone's listening, that there have been such really interesting studies recently involving rats or something, as usual, about learned helplessness. And this idea that when the rats realize that nothing they do affects their environment, they just go into like a kind of catatonic passive state. And I have to say that if you read some of those studies, it can really make you question the school system, where nothing a child does ever really affects their environment. So we have decided that home education is actually a microcosm of wonderful non-conformity, and we're broadening our child's horizons, and that actually paleontologists don't have a proper career. Anyone who's a hairdresser is apparently stupid. Don't even talk about working at Tesco. I would like to just put a caveat in that I really appreciate Tesco's workers. And
I really appreciate Tesco's is my favourite supermarket, and I really love you all. And I'm sorry that I added Tesco's. I didn't mean it.
I would say your picture will be up on the wall, but nobody knows what you look like, Charla. And then and something about Hitler. So that's good. I mean, we've run the whole gamut there. So next week, I was thinking that we could do, Andy Burnham has just announced that he's going to have much more emphasis on apprenticeships and practical skills. So that there's going to be like a 2-tier university system, well, not tier, but levels, where you're going to have academics and then practicals, very like Germany, which has the same thing with technical universities. So is that most of Europe has universities for academic, like research universities, and then technical universities for their practical skills. And I was thinking that we could do a live next week about the implications for home educators about that, because one thing that is quite difficult to do as a home educator is practical stuff, but then in other ways, it's actually a lot easier to do it because we have more opportunities. So I thought that would be an interesting one for us to talk about next week. And also coming up, we have a podcast on those hard to reach GCSEs like film studies, media studies, and music. That is coming out this Sunday. And Charlotte and Emily, thank you so much for joining me. Maybe next time Charlotte joins us, she will have a podcast baby with her.
Do you know what's going to make me laugh is that when I'm not pregnant and hot and sweaty, I'm going to be so much nicer, and everyone's going to be like, oh no.
Emily's taking over your mantle now anyway, of being the controversial one, so we're all good.
Yeah,
because according to Emily, anyone who can't speak proper
can't speak proper English. Do you know what, Emily? I really want you to come here. I really want you to come here for the day, because you will literally, if I took you to town and you saw and heard all of the people that live here, I think you'd have a heart attack.
Listen, I worked in the prison system. I've heard it all.
That's what makes you so uniquely qualified to be a home educator. Okay, thank you so much, you two. And I will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.